All right, so are you ready to travel back in time with me today?
Oh, I'm always ready for a good time travel adventure.
Well, perfect, because this deep dive is all about 16th century English drama.
Ooh, okay.
We're going to be looking at this morality play called Hickscorner,
Hickscorner? Okay.
and it's really a fascinating piece. It's kind of like the ancestor to every story about good versus evil, but with some really surprisingly sharp humor.
Oh, that sounds fun. I like a bit of humor.
Yeah, and we've got the original Hickscorner text right here.
Wow.
Plus, we're going to be pulling from this collection of classic English poetry called Relics of Ancient English Poetry. So we've got a lot to dig into.
Okay, so we're talking original play text plus some analysis and commentary. Sounds like a good deep dive to me.
Yeah, so are you ready to unlock the secrets of this literary gem?
Let's unlock them.
All right, let's do it. So what's really fascinating about Hickscorner is that it's not just some boring lecture on how to be good.
Yeah, morality plays always had that reputation, right?
Right, exactly. They were actually lively performances, often with lots of humor, that held up a mirror to the anxieties and issues of the time.
Okay, so they were entertaining too.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine this. You're in a bustling public square,
Okay, I can picture it.
and there's this stage set up, and you've got these larger-than-life characters with names like pity and contemplation and perseverance.
Wait, those are the characters' names? Pity, contemplation, perseverance.
Yeah, it's like the lineup for a very serious folk band.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
But instead of singing, they're lamenting the decline of morality in society.
Ah, so they're the voices of what traditional values.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, you've got characters like free will, imagination, and of course the infamous Hickscorner.
Just the name Hickscorner, it makes you wonder what kind of trouble he's going to stir up.
Oh yeah, he's like the embodiment of vice, a swaggering traveler who mocks religion and basically just brags about being a bad boy.
Okay, I'm intrigued already. It's like one of those stories about people who traveled the world and came back with the wildest tales.
Right. Except Hickscorner's tales are all about sin and mischief.
Ah, so he's seen it all and done it all, and not in a good way.
Exactly. And his outrageous boasts, they actually point to a deeper anxiety going on at the time.
What do you mean?
Well, back in the 16th century, there was this growing concern about, the erosion of religious authority.
People questioning traditional beliefs.
Exactly. And Hickscorner, with his blatant disregard for morality, he kind of embodies that unsettling shift.
Oh, I see. So he's
Yeah.
not just a funny character. He's a symbol of a society grappling with change.
Right. And then you've got free will and imagination representing those inner struggles we all face between good and bad choices.
So the classic battle within ourselves.
Precisely. So the plot unfolds like this pity, contemplation, and perseverance. They're all lamenting how vice seems to be winning.
Okay.
And then free will and imagination, they kind of strut onto the scene, practically bragging about their sinful exploit.
Well, they're not shy about it.
No, not at all. They describe this whole underworld of, taverns and gambling and all sorts of mischief.
So they're giving us a glimpse into like the underbelly of 16th century London.
It's like a guided tour of all the places you shouldn't be visiting, right?
Yeah, sounds like my kind of tour.
But then here's where things get even more interesting. Along comes Hickscorner,
Uh-oh.
and he joins this trio of mischief makers. So together they become this unruly gang stirring up trouble wherever they go.
I bet they cause quite a stir.
Oh,
Yeah.
And of course, things escalate quickly. A conflict breaks out, and poor Pity ends up getting thrown in prison.
Oh, no. Poor Pity.
Yeah, but what's really powerful about this scene is Pity's lament. It's not just about his own misfortune. It's this amazing reflection of the broader social anxieties of the time.
Like what kind of anxieties?
Things like poverty, injustice, the allure of temptation. It's like the playwright is giving a voice to those who are struggling and marginalized.
So we're seeing this layered social commentary emerging.
Exactly. It's not just a simple story about good versus evil. It's reflecting the complexities of life in 16th century England.
Fascinating. And I'm guessing there's a twist coming. This is a morality play after all.
No, there's always a twist. Right. So then in classic morality play, fashion, free will, and imagination, they have a change of heart.
They see the error of their ways.
Exactly. Thanks to the persuasive powers of perseverance and contemplation, they repent
Yeah.
and decide to follow a more righteous path.
It's like they suddenly realize, hey, maybe those guys singing about virtue have a point.
Right. But of course, the story doesn't end there.
It wouldn't be much of a play if it did.
The play concludes with this big search for Hickscorner.
Oh, so they're trying to bring him back to the fold.
It's like a reminder that the battle against vice is never truly over. That we always need to be vigilant against those temptations that can lead us astray.
So Hickscorner is leaving us with something to think about. That constant struggle between good and evil, not just in the play, but in our own lives. And that's what I think makes Hickscorner so interesting. It's not just some, dusty old play. It's a story that still speaks to us because, let's face it, we all have a little bit of Hickscorner in us.
Oh, totally. Like those moments where you're tempted to maybe cut a corner or bend a rule a little bit.
Exactly. We all have those impulses, but Hickscorner takes those impulses to the extreme.
Right. It's like a
Mhm.
cautionary tale showing us what could happen if we let those vices run wild.
Yeah.
But what I find so clever is how the play uses humor to make its point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The way Hickscorner weaves humor into this social commentary is brilliant.
It's like the playwright is saying, hey, let's laugh at ourselves and the absurdity of it all.
But underneath that laughter, there are some serious points being made.
Oh, for sure. Like
Hmm.
the way they use language, some of those insults are hilarious, even after all these
I
centuries.
know, right? Remember that line, I will wrap you on the costard with my horn?
It's so wonderfully absurd. It's like, what does that even mean?
But it tells us something about the characters and how they interacted.
Right? It's not just there for laughs. It's a window into how people spoke back then.
Exactly. Their slang, puns, even the curses, it all reveals something about them.
It's like today, how we might analyze someone's social media posts to get a sense of who they are.
Yeah, great analogy. But Hickscorner isn't all just fun and games. It also tackles some pretty heavy themes.
Oh yeah, stuff that would have resonated with audiences back then and honestly still resonates with us today.
Like the idea of society losing its moral compass right from the beginning of the play.
It's like pity, contemplation, and perseverance are all saying, what is this world coming to?
It's a timeless worry, right?
Totally. And this fear about moral decline, it pops up throughout history,
Especially during times of change and upheaval.
which makes you wonder what a 21st century Hicks Corner would look like.
What vices and temptations would be on stage today?
Hmm.
That's a good question.
Okay, but going back to the original play, another big theme is this idea of free will and consequences.
And the character free will just embodies that struggle so perfectly.
He's torn between doing the right thing and giving in to all those temptations.
That push and pull, that's something we can all relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there. Those
Yeah.
moments where we have to choose our path.
And Hickscorner reminds us that those choices have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, too.
For sure. And I think what's so smart about the play's allegorical approach is that it lets us explore these complex moral questions
Right.
without getting bogged down in the specifics.
It's like a thought experiment. You strip away all the details and focus on the core principles.
It's like hitting the reset button. But Hicks Corner doesn't shy away from the uglier parts of human nature either.
No, it definitely doesn't. There's violence, deceit, a justice system that seems more focused on punishment than rehabilitation.
It reminds us that people have always struggled with these same social problems.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. But even with all that darkness, there's still this glimmer of hope.
You mean how free will and imagination can change? How they repent and find a better path?
Yeah, exactly. It suggests that redemption is always possible, no matter how far down the wrong path you've gone.
It's a powerful message. And I think we need that kind of hope, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. But Hickscorner doesn't give us easy answers. It ends with that reminder to stay vigilant.
Like it's saying you've made progress, but don't get complacent.
Right. That ending with Hickscorner still out there challenges us to think about how we face a world where temptations are everywhere.
How do we resist those urges, those impulses that might lead us astray?
Tough questions, right? And those questions make Hickscorner so relevant even today.
Totally. And speaking of relevance, Hicks Corner isn't just about moral lessons. It's a fascinating time capsule.
Oh, yeah. It gives us this glimpse into life in 16th century England.
Like with those references to Tyburn and Newgate Prison.
And those notorious stews were getting a peek into the city's underbelly.
Exactly. It's like stepping back in time and walking those cobblestone streets.
And those little details about daily life, the food they ate, the clothes they wore, it brings that world to life.
Right? You start to see how the play connects to its historical context.
And how the playwright was drawing inspiration from the world around him.
So we're not just talking about individuals making moral choices. We're also seeing the bigger social and economic forces at play.
Yeah, like the play's focus on poverty and hardship, that speaks to a time of massive change in England.
Rising inflation, unemployment. It's no wonder people were tempted to make those bad choices.
And those anxieties really come through in Pity's character.
Right? How he laments the plight of the poor.
It reminds us that even centuries ago, people were concerned about social inequality.
Issues that we're still dealing with today. But, okay, we've talked about good and evil, temptation, social commentary, even some history. But there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
The portrayal of women in Hickscorner.
Ah, yes. Given what we've seen so far, I'm sure you can imagine it's not exactly the most flattering portrayal.
To put it mildly, I mean, Hickscorner boasts about having 3 pretty wenches in his shop of bawdry.
Right. Clearly, they're presented as objects of pleasure, reinforcing that old stereotype of women as temptresses leading men astray.
So not exactly a beacon of feminist enlightenment.
No, not really.
Yeah.
But remember, these plays were products of their time. They reflected the prevailing social norms and beliefs.
We have to take them with a grain of salt.
Exactly. However, even within those limited roles, the female characters in Hickscorner show some agency and wit.
Like Imagination's wife. She's not just a silent victim. She participates in the story.
Right. So while Hickscorner doesn't give us a particularly progressive view of women, it does offer glimpses into their lives.
And the challenges they face in that society.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even within those restrictions, women found ways to navigate a world dominated by men.
Okay, so back to the play's ending. The conversion of free will and imagination. It seems like a nice, tidy resolution.
Right. Everyone learns their lesson. All's well that ends well.
But is it really that simple? Is there something we're missing?
Well, if we look closer, the ending is more nuanced than it appears at first glance. The fact that Hickscorner is still out there, unrepentant and dangerous, suggests that the fight between vice and virtue isn't over.
So it's not just about individual redemption. It's about recognizing those forces of evil that are always present.
Exactly. We can't just assume that everything's fine and dandy.
Right. And that ending, with Hickscorner still at large,
Mm-hmm.
it leaves us with some big questions.
Like, what happens to him? Does he ever change his ways? And how do we navigate a world where those temptations are always lurking?
It's like the play's asking us, okay, what are you going to do about it?
And those are questions that Hickscorner doesn't explicitly answer.
Which makes it all the more thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Hickscorner, it's worth thinking about how these themes and characters resonate with our lives today.
What are the modern-day equivalents of Hickscorner, free will, and imagination?
And how do, just like those characters, navigate a world where our choices have consequences?
It's like Hickscorner is giving us this, toolkit for understanding not just the world around us, but the world inside us, too.
I like that. A toolkit.
Yeah.
It's giving us these frameworks for thinking about good and evil and temptation and all the choices we make every single day.
Instead of just saying, hey, be a good person, it's showing us how messy it can be.
Oh, yeah. It shows those struggles and temptations, those moments where we're weak. And it puts it all out there right on the stage.
Right. And through those allegorical characters, Hickscorner can tackle these big philosophical questions in a way that's still entertaining.
It makes you think, but you're also enjoying the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the big questions it wrestles with is the nature of good and evil.
What do you mean?
Well, it suggests that they're not just external forces, out there in the world.
But internal struggles, too. Part of who we are.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, we all have our demons.
Right. But the question is, how do we deal with them? Do we let them win, or do we fight back?
And Hickscorner reminds us that those demons can be very seductive, but also very destructive.
Yeah, they can lead us down a dangerous path.
But it also suggests that we have a choice.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose the right path.
To resist those temptations and become better people.
But okay, let's bring this back to today's world. If Hickscorners were written now, who would those allegorical characters be?
It's like a game, right? Trying to find those modern-day equivalents. It makes you think about all the forces that represent vice and virtue in our world today.
So who would be our modern-day Hickscorner? I'm thinking maybe it's that voice of negativity and cynicism that we see online.
Oh, interesting. Like those internet trolls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The ones who spread misinformation and try to bring others down.
They definitely embody that same disregard for truth and kindness that we see in the original Hickscorner.
And maybe our modern-day pity could be all those people who are fighting for justice and compassion.
The ones who are trying to make the world a better place.
Yes, they're like beacons of hope even when things seem really dark.
That's a beautiful thought. What about free will? Who or what represents that struggle to make ethical choices today?
That's a good one. Maybe it's that constant pressure to conform.
Oh, I see. Like all those temptations we face in our consumerist culture.
Yeah, instant gratification, the pressure to fit in. It's like we're always being bombarded with these messages that can lead us down the wrong path.
And what about imagination? Could that be the power of creativity and innovation, but
Mhm.
also the dangers of manipulation and deceit?
Wow. Yeah. Especially the digital age.
Mhm.
Think about all those fake news stories and how easily information can be distorted.
It's like a double-edged sword. Technology can be used for good or evil. It depends on us, on our choices.
Just like free will in the play. So even though Hickscorner is centuries old,
It still speaks to us, to our struggles and dilemmas.
we're still trying to figure out what it means to be good in a world that can be so complicated and confusing.
And Hickscorner, in its own way, offers us some guidance. It reminds us that we're not alone in this struggle.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Hickscorner,
We want to encourage you to keep thinking about these ideas.
think about those modern-day allegories and how the themes of the play show up in your own life.
In the choices you make, the relationships you build, and how you interact with the world around you.
Because just like those audiences back in the 16th century,
We're all still on that journey trying to figure out what it means to be human.
and Hickscorner reminds us that even though the journey can be tough,
It's a journey worth taking.
thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Hickscorner. We hope you enjoyed exploring this literary gem with us.
And until next time, happy deep diving.